There's so much to learn about God and what he wants for you and how to set up your business in a way that it'll thrive. And I mean, it's very clear, like you could do it without him, but you're going to struggle and you're going to fail. And he wants to see us partner.
Your network is your net worth. Come listen to some of the most successful people I know share invaluable knowledge, stories, and advice in real estate, business, and beyond. This is Weiss Advice. Whether you want to take your business or personal life to the next level, look no further. Welcome back to another episode of Weiss Advice. I'm your host, Yonah Weiss, as always, on this wonderful trip I like to call a podcast where we get to meet incredible people. And today is no exception because we have Annette, all the way from Texas. And she's going to tell us what her last name is.
Yeah, last name is Hemmert. I married a German man. So I lost my Latina last name, and now I'm a brown girl with a German last name.
Well, good for you. It's amazing. And I appreciate you coming on the show because we have such a diverse guest, I guess. Guestship, is that a word? Like people that come on the show? I don't know. I just made up a word, but that's something, we have a unique panel of guests, and I'm grateful that we were able to connect through LinkedIn over the years and be able to, have a lot of mutual friends in common. And one of the most things in common is real estate and multifamily, which is something we're both very involved with. And I'd love to hear more for our listeners who don't know who Annette Hemmert is. Tell us a little bit about your background, about your story.
Yeah. So I grew up in Texas. I wasn't born here, but I got here as soon as I could. I don't see myself leaving. I love it here. I have been in sales all of my working life. I find it really fun to be able to help people find solutions to their problems. And my most recent ride has been pharmaceutical sales. So I've been doing that for over a decade. My husband is a financial advisor, and we just knew that we can't be in W-2s forever. I have 2 little kids also. I needed more freedom. We knew we needed to create passive streams of income. We knew that we needed to be wise when it came to taxes. And so we wanted to just seek out really wise counsel to help us make that jump into real estate, because neither one of us, we knew nothing. This was back in 2021. We knew nothing about real estate. And so, we joined a mastermind, and we just have been trying to keep the momentum up ever since.
That's amazing, because to me, finding people who are struggling to figure out what their future is going to look like in terms of finances and have never heard of real estate. I mean, to me, it's fascinating, but I see it all the time. And for me, myself, it wasn't until I was in my mid-30s that I ever heard of like investing in commercial real estate as a thing.
Same.
I knew about residential, I knew about, buying, single families and things like that. But to me, it didn't even cross my mind that that was a thing. And the fact that you can still be, a busy professional and invest as well along the side, that to me was a big, and I know for a lot of people, including yourself, was a big paradigm shift. And then joining the mastermind, I'd love to hear more about that, because for me, also, that's been a powerful kind of transition. And I know a lot of the guests we've had on the show have talked about how that's been the biggest accelerator to their growth in their financial independence, is joining a mastermind and connecting with the right people and giving the guidance. So I'd love to hear kind of how you found out about that in the first place, because, it's something, it isn't just like falling in your lap, like, oh, let's join a multifamily mastermind. Like, did you know someone? Did you connect? Was it just like internet research, bigger pockets? Like, who knows?
Yeah. So great question. We actually, one of our, I guess, gateway people that led us into specifically apartments was Grant Cardone. And so, you can't really Google passive real estate without his big face coming up. So we started listening to him. He has a mastermind, but he's all the way out in Florida, and his mastermind is virtual. And we knew we wanted to invest in our neighborhood, like here in Texas. And so we did some searching, found one that was local here to San Antonio. It wasn't the paradigm shift. Well, there was a paradigm shift in that we knew we needed to take like decades of experience. Like we could do it ourselves, but it would take forever. And we needed to compress that into a shorter time horizon. And I think that's the value of joining the mastermind. is that, like you said, you get connected with the right people. You don't have to go and fish people out yourself or interview people that you want to work with. They've already been vetted by your mentor. And so we joined, it's called Apartment Educators. It's based here out of Texas. It's a gentleman named Devin Elder that started it. And so he kind of took us under his wing, and it's a beautiful thing. Nothing against Grant Cardone's mastermind.
Sure.
I'm sure it's fantastic, but we really wanted to be like, go to live events,
Absolutely,
live meetups. I mean, we're handshakers. So yeah, that was a paradigm shift. The other thing was, it was twofold. It was figuring out that you can find somebody who can help you shorten your time horizon and get to your goals faster. That was the first one. The second thing was, the fastest way to grow is to pay for the skills that you need.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went to college, but I had never really invested in myself that kind of chunk of change. And it could feel like a sticker shock, So it's $25,000, but I would do it again in a heartbeat.
Sure. Absolutely.
Because it set the ball in motion.
Absolutely. And I know Devin for years. In fact, I think one of the first guests on his podcast when he launched it, like, I don't know, 6-7 years ago or something. I don't remember when that was, but it goes back a while. But yeah, definitely great guy, and great to have the right people. Obviously, Grant Cardone is a personality. We've talked about him on the show. I've spoken to him, met him in person. Amazing person, but it rubs a lot of people the wrong way, and for some reasons. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't want to make this a podcast about Grant Cardone, but let's transition into kind of that transition for you from taking that mastermind, taking the leap into your first deal. I know for a lot of people, including myself, writing your first check, obviously writing a check or whatever, transferring money, whatever it is, to join a mastermind, that, like you said, that seems like a bit of a shock sometimes. But then sending your first, money into a syndication as a passive investor or as a limited partner or even as a general partner, it's a big step. It's a big leap. It's almost like a leap of faith. It's like, okay, I know I've learned all about this. I know that this can't work, but there's obviously risks involved. I personally have lost money in investing. I think a lot of people, if you've been doing it long enough, I'm sure you have as well, right? Mm-hmm. It goes with but you have to take that leap. So, was that like a big shock for you as well? Like, okay, I'm putting 50,000, 100,000, whatever into this deal. It's gone. Hopefully it'll come back, and hopefully more of it will come back.
Right. Yeah, no, it was, so we started off as limited partners or passive investors. And again, I know he rubs people the wrong way, but we actually love Grant Cardone, and we invested in Cardone Capital. We put like $100K into one of his deals. That was our first toe in the water. And yeah, the cool thing about him is that it's been a wonderful learning experience because we're still in the deal. And so he does not only investor updates on the deal on a quarterly basis, but he'll also throw in other calls where he'll just talk about the market. He'll bring so much value to the investors that have invested with him. So he brings a lot of value to it. I've learned a lot through that, but making that leap from limited partner to general partner, that was much more scary for me because now we're taking on other people's money. So that was the next, 10x leap was, okay, are we ready to be like, not just good stewards with our own money, but be perfect stewards with our network's money?
Very difficult. It's a very difficult decision. It takes a lot. And that to me has been the hardest thing for me personally. I don't think I've ever shared this before, but for me being I've been offered to become like a general partner on several deals I have on occasion, but on 2 occasions. But for me, that was the biggest hesitation is it's not just my money that, okay, yes, I'm willing to risk my own capital, but other people's as well. This is their livelihood, this is their savings, this is their retirement, this is everything. To me, having something happen, especially if it's, something that a partner of mine does that is unethical or is, that to me is, I couldn't live with myself if something like that happens. So to me, that's been my biggest hesitation, a fear really, to be honest. And that's one of the main reasons I've strayed away from it, because I've seen now over the past few years that I've invested in many syndications as a passive investor. I've seen a couple deals that have gone south and gone wrong. And I'm thinking to myself, if that was me as the general partner in that deal, how would I feel? And how would I feel about these people's money just disappearing or it doesn't feel good. So
Right.
I obviously understand that part of it, but you got to do it. I think for a lot of people, it's the fastest way.
It is. It is because, I mean, ultimately, our trajectory is to, at Covenant Capital, to be able to do our own deals. That's the goal. So we're focusing on a few key skills right now so that we can eventually break away from, again, make that next 10x leap from general partnership to becoming our own sponsors. But the thing is, though, like what you were saying, like the fear, you have this vast network. Like, everybody, like, the operators who have that perfect track record, who are vertically integrated, which minimizes a ton of risk there.
Right.
The ones who have a track record of not only delivering the returns that they promise, but over delivering.
Yeah.
The asset classes that are the less risky. So that's like the field that we play in. Was we did a lot of studying to figure out, okay, there's no investment is going to be zero risk, but there are ways to mitigate as much of the risk as possible by working with just really solid, experienced sponsors or operators.
100%. I agree with you. And that's one of the things. It took me, a few years until I was comfortable enough with people and knowing people and watching them and seeing the track record to actually invest. It wasn't for me because that to me was, I need to know this person personally. I need to know that I can trust them. I need to know that they have a good, solid track record. And like you said, that they've shown results. And it was very easy to show results, between 2018 and, 2021 or whatever, that it was just huge. Everyone was making money. It was like left and right. People were buying and selling apartments, buildings, a 5-year hold. And then all of a sudden after 18 months, it's already made like, double profit. So we're going to sell it. It became almost too easy. And that is like a red flag in of itself. Right. And so like we've talked about this a few times on the show, but the first one that brought this up was about 5 years ago when we first launched the podcast. Ivan Barrett mentioned that there was not a real estate bubble, but a syndication bubble is what he called it. And there was like way too many people getting involved in this. And now, I believe now in 2024, at the time of this recording, that it's popped to a certain extent. Obviously, with the high interest rates past 18 months or so,
sure,
we've seen a lot of people get hurt. And I think a lot of that disappear.
Get hurt, and then like, where'd they go?
Just vanish. Yeah. Literally just posted about something yesterday. We had a podcast episode that we deleted from someone who we had on the show 4 years ago. And then just in the past year, he literally just disappeared. And now he's on the hook being investigated by the SEC for, $300 million of capital from, a class action. So it's crazy that people out there like that exist. And it's very difficult, I think, even with all of the research you can do, that still can happen. Sure,
absolutely. Yeah, it's by far my favorite asset class. Like you said earlier, who knew that you could even invest in apartments or invest in commercial real estate? Or I know for me, like I always thought it was just like, okay, well, a bank or an institution owns that. Or just some really rich guy, but it's not the case. And so what I think, especially, you have so much more experience than me, Annette. Like you have so much more knowledge. For me, it's like, I think just telling your story, if you ever did want to become a GP or if anybody wanted to ever become a GP, you could say, look, this is what's happened to me. There's, it's really important, but this is my favorite group to invest with. And this is why. And that's how we actually started, was we were telling people what we were doing because we couldn't keep it to ourselves. Like we felt like we found a little pot of gold. We were like, look at the way this works. This is amazing. You could potentially 2x your money in 3 to 5 years, and you get cash flow and you get tax benefits. Like this is amazing. And so it was just through that we were actually bringing people into other deals that we weren't even general partners with. We were like, look, you should invest in this with us. This is cool. And so that's when we did that for about a year before I started Covenant Capital. And it was like, okay, let's do this for real now. Like we get it. We understand the market. We've been studying really hard. We'll just be sure to tell people the whole story because there's a lot of people that have the problems that you and I can solve.
Sure.
And they'll never know that there's a solution to their problem until you tell them, until you talk about what your business does and how it can help them.
Annette, this story it's fascinating, and you're absolutely right in terms of the people like me, like you. We all have stories. We all have a background that can lead to, coming to investor real estate to help take hold of our future. And to me, it's fascinating. By the way, it's kind of been distracting me, our whole conversation, the bottle of single malt on the bookshelf behind you over there, but kind of making me thirsty, to be honest. No, but bookshelves are filled with amazing books. And, we spoke about briefly before coming on the show, you mentioned to me a book that has really changed your perspective on business and life. And I'd love for you to kind of share. Obviously, we're going to talk towards the end of the episode more about a paradigm shift book for those of our listeners who do listen all the way to the end and know about the final four. But I'd love for you to kind of preempt that by telling us about that book that's kind of changed your business.
Yeah, no, it changed my perspective, changed my life. It's called Thou Shalt Prosper. I'm sure a lot of your audience might have heard of it. If you haven't read it, you need to. It's by Rabbi Daniel Lapin. And basically the book tries to answer, well, he does a fantastic job of answering the question, okay, our Jewish brothers and sisters, they make up such a tiny percentage of the population on earth, yet they own a disproportionately huge amount of the wealth on earth. And the reason for that, he lays out, is because our Jewish brothers and sisters know how to do business because they base business off of a set of biblical laws that they may or may not realize. So, because it's a beautiful thing that Jewish people, they study the Bible from a very young age. And so these principles, these values, the ethics are instilled in them from a very young age.
Right.
And then they understand also that business is not, regardless of what the world will try to indoctrinate people with. And this is actually what I wanted to talk to you about, because I'm very tired of hearing that business is an evil thing, or that business owners need to pay their fair share, or that corporations are just greedy. It's not the case. It's that the vast majority of businesses that are created to provide value. Like, they don't get paid. They provide more value than what they receive in payment. And so he talks about like he calls them commandments in the book that Rabbi Daniel does. He calls them commandments, but they're basically like biblical business commandments.
Interesting.
And so we were talking about, okay, we don't want to keep the fact that not a lot of people know about investing in commercial real estate. We figured it out. We found it. I mentioned I feel like I found a little pot of gold. And I can't keep that to myself. A lot of people have the same frustrations and problems that I had before I started seeking out solutions. And I've obsessed over these solutions because it's my family. And if I have these problems, I need to share the solutions with other people who might also have the same problems. The high taxes, the passive income, knowing that you need to create alternative income streams because you can't rely on your 9 to 5 for the rest of your lives. And why would you want to?
Or just one income stream for that matter. Like, what happens if you can't work for some reason? It's, you have to create more.
Exactly.
It's fascinating. Yeah, I'd love to hear more.
Yeah. So I'll just touch on a couple of things, but you asked what the paradigm shifts were, and you asked how it's changed my life. Well, so for me, my parents were business owners. My dad's a dentist. He owned his own practice, but it was never instilled in me to talk about. We never talked about money. We never talked about, all those things, money, politics, religion, which is also, I don't agree with that at all. But with this book, Rabbi Daniel, he talks about, if you own a business, it's your responsibility as a business owner to tell everyone that you meet what you do so that you present them with, like I said, that solution. You present them with the solution to their potential problems. And not everybody's going to be an investor for me. Not everybody may be a client for you.
Right.
But we at least present it. And he said, you have to get comfortable with talking about money and talking about how you can help people on every interaction. So that was a paradigm shift. The second thing that it took me a while to take action on this, but he talks about the importance of if you want to be successful at business, you need to be around people.
Mm-hmm.
And so he said, if you look at the Jewish populations, usually they're always in like big metros. They're in, like, you won't find like a Jew in a cornfield, like they're concentrated.
Interesting.
And so I didn't know that, but I guess, thinking about San Antonio, there are a couple of places where like they're all downtown.
Right.
I know
There's like a
synagogue.
community. Yeah. They
Yeah.
usually live in one kind of community together, not spread out.
Perfect.
Exactly.
Yes, exactly. Yes. And there's all around their beautiful synagogues. And so at the time that I read this book for the first time, because I've read it a couple of times, my husband and I, we were living way out in the burbs, like we wanted space after COVID. We wanted land. We lived on a golf course. It was like just somewhere that we could just, have our kids play outside.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have to put on pants if they don't want to, kind of thing. And after reading this book, I'm like, man, we are out here. We come home. I mean, we know our neighbors, but we don't really hang out that much. Like, we're not talking to people about what we're doing. I'm not posting anything on social media. I'm not like, we need to get around people. And so we made the decision this summer, like this is actually a couple years later, where I finally gave in and I caved, and we sold our house and our land, and we sold, that idea of living out in the suburbs, and we moved downtown.
Wow.
To downtown San Antonio. I mean, it's beautiful. We live in a really great, nice area, but we've met so many people, like we've
Right.
made so many connections and met so many, and it's all our, it's all our target avatar. It's
Right.
it's the business owners. It's people who have the challenges like what we had, that we can at least present the offer to, like, hey, we should sit down and have coffee. Let me show you how we're tackling this problem in my household.
Wow. It's amazing.
It's just been explosive. Yeah. And I think that's by far probably my biggest paradigm shift.
That's a huge life decision, huge, right? And where you live is probably one of the biggest decisions you can make, where you're raising your kids, where your community is. And I think what you touched on there in terms of the aspect of community within the Jewish people is a huge thing, especially for the religious Jewish people like myself. We don't, work on the Sabbath, on Shabbos, right, the seventh day, and we also don't, we don't drive. But one of the most important things of the Sabbath is congregating together in the synagogue 3 times a day. Once in the evening, once again in the morning, and then later in the afternoon on Saturday. And since we don't drive, you have to walk, so you have to live close enough that you can do that. Which means that everyone, or most people are in a very close proximity, which gives that real feeling of community and coming together and having not just, the Sabbath, but also other activities and things like that. And I think anyone can really, you don't have to be Jewish to replicate that, that you can have other activities. If you have another religion, you can go to church or whatever it is that you do, but you are connecting with people in your community. You talked about going to a real estate meetup and things like that. Those are things that are happening in every single community, weekly, or maybe multiple times a week. You can do that wherever you are. And if you don't know what real estate REI, a real estate investing meetup, you can Google that, right? Go on to Bigger Pockets. Also, they have usually a list you can search based on your location of different real estate meetups, within a 10-mile radius of where I live on Bigger Pockets, and you can find different meetups. So I highly encourage everyone to do that. Now, you don't have to, like Annette did, right? Totally uproot yourself and move, downtown. Obviously you have to live where you want to live, but that's such a powerful anecdote of what that is. And we heard, I have a friend who lives in New York City, and he talks about all the time. He talks about how if you are, young and you want to be successful in business, living in New York City is probably one of the biggest things for you because of the networking that happens.
Yes. Mm-hmm. It's huge. It's huge. And speaking of networking, you also, Yana, but this is why I'm so grateful that I get to actually meet you in person today, or virtually today, because you've had a big impact with my network and growing it through your challenges on LinkedIn. Like, I just think LinkedIn is the most That's the best thing ever. I've met so many people through LinkedIn. And I think I told you in my initial email, like you helped me to double my following since May when I did
Wow.
your first challenge. So yeah, you instilled in me some really great habits and it's definitely been fruitful. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. I mean, it's an amazing thing. I've been totally blown away over the past, I guess, 6 years or so now since I've been
Mhm.
active on LinkedIn. And over the past, I think maybe 4, maybe 5 years now. I don't remember when I first started the LinkedIn challenge. I think it was in 2019 or 2020,
Mhm.
but it's had an impact on so many people, hundreds of people like yourself. And I'm just so grateful. I love to see when that happens. I love to see when real connections are made. I've seen partnerships come through that. I've seen, people have deals, have investors, have
Mhm.
all kinds of things happen just through the networking. Obviously, the habits that come along with posting consistently on social media is one of the main proponents of what the challenge is all about, right?
Right.
Doing it for 10 days straight, right, creates a habit. You continue to
Mhm.
do it. I know I see your content. You're, consistent in doing that. But one of the other biggest proponents of it is the network, is really
Mhm.
connecting with the other people in the groups that we're doing this together with. And I've seen
Yeah.
incredible things happen that way. And you don't
Yeah.
have to, you talked about doing, moving locally. You don't have to necessarily be local and do those things. There are so many things you can be done virtually nowadays with, Zoom meetups and through social media. If you're not
And
involved, you need to be.
yeah, I know everything can be done virtually. Like there's actually no reason. It's nice to meet up in person, but everybody's busy. I got 2 kids. I got a husband. Like I need to fit and I still actually have my W-2. I have one foot in sales and one foot in real estate right now. And so, yeah, there's no excuse to be able to meet people on LinkedIn and then have meetings with them
Mm.
virtually and build your network that way as well. Yeah, you don't have to go full blown crazy and move like I did, but you're absolutely right. I've met investors. My last two sponsors that I partnered with were from LinkedIn. And yeah, it's a beautiful thing.
Incredible. Annette, I want to transition, I should say, to what we call the final four. The
All
four
right.
questions I ask all my guests. First one for you is, what is the worst job that you ever had?
My first job, I worked in a gray cubicle under fluorescent lights, and my cubby mate would take off his shoes and his feet stunk. That was my worst job.
That-
But it was sales. I was doing like outbound phone sales. It was the worst.
yeah, I mean, not much to say about that.
You asked.
Yeah, absolutely. I take it you didn't last very long in that.
No, no, I was out of there as soon as I could.
Okay. Second question, and we did speak about this a lot, so you can go more into this if you'd like, or pick another one if you'd like. But the question is, what's a book you've read that's given you a paradigm shift?
I'm going to still stay on Thou Shalt Prosper. It's had the single most biggest impact on my life. Like I said, I think I'm on the third time reading it. And I would say to everybody, religious or not, like God has set out a set of principles for us to succeed. And not only for us to succeed, but for us to prosper. And He wants to see us prosper. And whether or not you're religious, I mean, there are lots of wealthy people in the world that abide by these principles who don't believe in God, but they're mirroring His footprint. They're providing lots of value. They
Mm-hmm.
are taking less in payment than what they're creating in value. They have constant streams of communication with their quote unquote followers. And so there's so much to learn from this book. And there's so much to learn about God and what He wants for you and how to set up your business in a way that it'll thrive. And I mean, it's very clear, like you could do it without Him, but you're going to struggle and you're going to fail. And he wants to see us partner. And I think that's what the book really, really has helped me to understand is, yeah, I can't do it alone. Like it's going to take a big team to get you from point A to point B. And it's going to take a lot of learning. So
Right. Awesome. Well,
great
we'll
book.
definitely make sure to put that in the show notes if anyone wants to check that out. Thou Shalt Prosper by Rabbi Daniel Lapin, I believe you said. And we will move to the third question, which is, what's a skill or talent that you would like to learn?
I want to learn how to play the acoustic guitar. So I'm a piano player.
Oh,
I
okay.
took classical lessons for 10 years, but you can't like take a piano places and like jam with your friends. And I always thought it was so cool that people who played the guitar, they could take their music anywhere.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you could, take a keyboard or whatever, but it's not the same.
Not the same.
Not the same at all. Yeah. There's, obviously being a musician already, having that in you is probably a lot easier to move over because, the scales and the notes and everything like that. It's easily, once you know the music theory, it's very easily to transfer that. It's just learning the ropes and getting those calluses on your fingers. That's
Do you play? Do you play an instrument?
I play guitar a little bit. I shouldn't say I play. I don't play guitar, but I learned to play guitar when I was in high school, and throughout college I played a lot. But so cool. Still have it. I still try to pick it up like at least, once or twice a month, just to play a little bit for my kids or whatever. But yeah, no, I'm not a guitar player. But I love music and I understand music. But yeah, that's great. Well, good luck with that. I'd love to hear how that goes. In fact, my daughter right now just asked me to buy her guitar for her birthday. So we'll see if she wants to, continue with that.
That's huge. She already has such an interest. How old is she?
Well, she's 20. So she's interested. One of her best friends plays it. So she's like, oh, I want to. And I actually keep my guitar in her bedroom. Like that's where it's stored. So she, picks it up and kind of fiddles around, but it's never taken lessons. But I actually taught myself to play. So she could,
nice.
I broke my leg when I was in high school, when I was 14. And I was literally bedridden for 3 weeks and then was out of school and was, I was very athletic. I played sports a lot. And then, so I was like, okay, now what do I do? At that time I picked up the guitar and, just went from there. Anyway,
cool.
Yeah. A lot of fun stories for our listeners to learn all about the Weiss Advice history. Annette, fourth and final question. What does success mean to you?
Success to me means freedom. Freedom in every sense of the word. Freedom of my time, freedom of my creativity, freedom of my words, being able to speak freely and not care, frankly, what people think. And the only way that you can, and freedom also to make an impact financially. So giving is a huge part of my company's philosophy. And to be able to do all of these things, you need to make money. And so freedom of finances comes along with it. Right. So that's what freedom means to me. It's impact. It's being able to hang out with my kids whenever I want, however I want, move to another part of the world if I want to. It's all of those things.
Love it. Awesome. Well, wish you much continued success in all of those aspects. And it has been a pleasure. Really, really fun connecting. Great speaking with you.
Yeah, you too, Yona. Thank you for having me. I hope you have a wonderful day.
Absolutely. And finally, before we leave, where can our listeners find you or reach out to you if they want?
Yeah, so find me on LinkedIn. I post a lot there pretty frequently about not only just real estate investing, but also just wealth mindset, wealth principles. So you can find me on LinkedIn. You can also shoot me an email. My email is Annette@covenantcapitaltx.com. Or we have an investor relations gal, Sabrina, at covenantcapitaltx.com if you'd like to learn more. Or you could just go to our website,
awesome.
Which is covenantcapitaltx.com.
Awesome. Well, we will put all that in the show notes. Make sure everyone can access that and connect with you. And I highly recommend it. Please reach out. And when you do, I tell everyone, and I love when I get feedback from guests who this happens to. But if you're listening to this all the way to the end, and you reach out on LinkedIn, don't just hit that connect button. Don't just hit that follow button. Take 10 seconds and write a little note saying, I listened to you on the Weiss Advice or whatever it is, I love the podcast or what have you. Just take 10 seconds, write that note. It makes that connection real and it makes it to start a conversation, which you never know where that can lead. So I always recommend to do that on every platform, whoever you connect with, but especially when, it came from a specific source. So with that said, I just want to take the time to show my appreciation for you taking the time today, and to our listeners also. You guys have been awesome, staying all the way to the end. And remember, until next time, the best advice comes only when you ask. Real quick, I have one question for you. Did you like this episode? If you did, I want to ask you a huge favor. See, the biggest thing that helps this podcast grow and that will spread this message to the whole world is that if you leave a review, a rating, and subscribe to the podcast. What that does is it basically tells the platforms that this podcast is out on is that you like my stuff and I'm doing something right. So take a few seconds out of your day, hit that subscribe button, leave a rating or review. I would be extremely grateful. Also, I want to hear from you guys. So I want to hear some feedback. If you have any questions for future episodes, please find me on LinkedIn. Send me a DM, connection request, Yona Weiss, and I'd love to hear from you.